Hi everyone and welcome to News in TV. My name is Kostan Komo and this is The Agenda, your weekly program that discusses topical issues grappling in the country, currently happening in the country. And my guest for today is Information Permanent Secretary, Mr. Nicky Mangwana. Mr. Mangwana, sir, welcome to this program.
Thank you for having me, Kostan.
Let me just start by finding out from you, how fair are the people's views that say this government has failed the people of Zimbabwe?
No, the views are not very fair and they are not factual. Maybe it speaks to our failure as an information ministry to inform the nation of what's going on, but it also may be speaking to a lot of polarization in this state and in this nation. Because when you want to look at things objectively, you would find that there's a lot of milestones, positive milestones that have been achieved in the last, for 15 or so months of government.
So you are talking of people not being objective in terms of saying this government has failed, but there's a shared public view that life was better under Robert Mugabe than it is under President Emerson Mnangagwa.
No, that's not correct. That speaks to the syndrome we would call the good old days. The good old days syndrome is when you were eating beans at school and you had very little food in boarding school, you would still think of your boarding school days as the good old days. But that's selective memory. But let's come down to the issues of what this government has achieved. The difference between the old administration and this administration. Because there is no point, and it's not right for government to be arguing with the citizens. If there are people that feel that way, we validate their feelings, but in as far as their feelings are concerned, but not the correct facts that this government has failed. No. When we came into this government, much of what you paid as taxes was going towards the current expenditure. It was paying my salary, the salary of workers and other civil servants. Primarily, the running cost of government. That's it. Right now, a major thing is because of the past underinvestment, this government is investing a lot in infrastructure, the enablers of economic development. After a period of nearly 20 years of underinvestment, you don't expect the result to be miraculous. So 30% of your taxes right now is going to investment. Let's go rudimentary. Let's look at the basics.
Maybe before we venture into the issues of investment, because obviously there is a slot that we're going to talk about, the issue of investment. But I want to exhaust on the issue of whether this government is better than the previous one, or what is it exactly. The syndrome that you're talking about, I understand that people are saying during Robert Mugabe, of course, when they were protesting in November 2017, bread was 50 cents, or 90 cents plus some biscuits, and combis were 50 cents and so forth. Will that not be obviously any fair objective in terms of analyzing this government and the previous one?
Okay, if you want to compare like for like, and that is 50 US cents, what is the cost of bread now? We are comparing like for like because you cannot compare 90 cents in US dollars terms and 90 ZWL cents. So, just to do that comparison, what's the difference?
But I understand that during that time things were actually affordable. But right now that man is not, especially the civil servants. There is huge complaining. They are always in the streets complaining about the government because of their salaries no longer able them to buy basic commodities.
There is no question that when we are making our reforms, most on the economic and fiscal side, there is an impact on what the people can afford. Number one. Number two, as you know, we've been hard hit by drought, and a lot of money is going into that drought relief. Today, on my Twitter, in the papers and so forth, we're talking of the cushioning that's going on to the urban areas. 100,000 homes have to be supported by government. Of course, things are tough. But when you are dealing with a drought, a most devastating drought that has ever occurred in the last century, it's not going to be business as usual. Even with the droughts, the annual droughts that were happening in this country, Robert Mugabe never dealt with the level of catastrophe we are dealing with. But that's not excuses. What is the government doing? Things may be tough, but let's look at the fundamentals, because we never said it at any time that things are going to change overnight. As I said, we're changing the fundamentals. You moved me away from the conversation on investment These are the fundamentals. What are we investing into? And then when you invest, because it's seed money, when you put seed money, you expect a harvest to happen at some time. Now, if you simply say, we can't talk about that at this point, what you want us to talk about is, no, there is no crop. When we have plowed, when we have planted, when we are nesting some seedlings, and you're simply saying, oh, the fact is there is no harvest. No. You look at what we are doing to ensure that there will be a harvest. It's not going to be easy. Reform is not easy. I will tell you, Egypt is going through reforms. They got a lot of support. I think over 12 billion in support internationally. I can tell you, Greece is going through reforms, and they are getting a lot of support.
Why is Zimbabwe not getting that support?
It's unfortunate. It comes back to the S word, sanctions. It comes straight to that. But that's the only direct answer I can give you. But if you want me to expand, I'm very happy to expand.
Well, as I said, we obviously have a slot to discuss on that.
Sure.
Let's just close the item on Mugabe. Just last week, former Minister of War Veterans, Chinga Dube, when he was launching his book, he said Zimbabwe missed an opportunity to have been united in 2017 after the removal of Robert Mugabe, after resignation of Robert Mugabe from power. And what would have been the best foot forward for Zimbabwe after Mugabe, in your view?
I think actually President Mnangagwa put the best foot forward. What did he do? For the first time during his own inauguration, all opposition party leaders were invited, including Tsvangirai. Nelson Chamisa was there. This is our Zimbabwe, right? 2 weeks later, he did not ask Tsvangirai to come to his office. He went to Tsvangirai's house. The president, his vice presidents, went in there, gave support. That had never been done, considering the toxic environment we were coming from. Not even with Kenan Banana, whose family was in exile in Britain. No, this was Tsvangirai, who people had been calling names before. And straight on, he reached out. Sekuru, how can I help? He supported that family. Supported this is what Zimbabweans want. So you've got two polar coordinates that are being brought together, the ZANU-PF side and the MDC side, because these are the lines of polarization.
I understand you. Let's go precisely into this question. I understand Chinga Dube's comments are that maybe the MDC and Nelson Chamisa or Mugen Tsvangirai, they should have been part of the transformational government from after Robert Mugabe. That move would have been unconstitutional. That would have needed a constitutional amendment, and would have ended with no opposition in Zimbabwe. We're a democratic country where the government has to be brought to account, and we need an opposition. Swallowing the opposition is probably not the best democratic move, I don't believe. Well, fine. Let's look at the other area, the democratic space. You seem to be so much sure that this government has introduced a new scenario in terms of the political space. But there is a huge complaint, particularly from the opposition, the MDC, that the democratic space has been shrinking since precisely August 1, 2018.
No, they are wrong. You see, when you believe that having a wide and deep democratic space is being able to do as one pleases without any safeguards, it's not a democratic country. That's anarchy. So no country advocates for anarchy. People have done things that probably in other countries they wouldn't have done. The MDC managed to inaugurate Chamisa as some sort of, I don't know what, in this country. It happened, did it? That's democratic space. They celebrated their 20th anniversary. President Mnangagwa actually gave a congratulatory message to the MDC and say, test me, according to that message, and say, I'm looking forward to the contestations. That's democratic space. But the democracy that people are looking for is for people running riots in the CBD. No.
And why is that happening, particularly to one political party? Why is that happening?
I think that's the best question for them. Why are they doing it?
Let me just give you an example. In 2018, when the opposition staged a demonstration, they were so peaceful regarding the electoral reforms, and
Correct.
not even a tomato was struck in the streets. I
Correct.
witnessed those demonstrations.
Yes.
You agree with me?
Yeah.
Why now is this government refusing this party to hold the demonstrations?
Okay. So the build up to the elections was good. No problem, peaceful, and they were allowed to do so. But what happened on the 1st of August was bad. massive damage, massive threats. I'm one of those people who was marooned elsewhere, hiding away from these marauding people with all sorts of arsenal coming at the people. And then, fine, even a stay away come January, it was supposed to be a stay away, staying away, but there was no stay away, isn't it? It was active arson, active demolition and vandalism of police stations. Instead of people, people normally stay away from police, but these people were going to police stations, attacking police stations. That is what went wrong. And at that point, the point is we cannot let that carry on. So where things are contained, security-wise, because the security of the nation is paramount. I think over the weekend, the MDC was allowed to have its rally in Chegbutu, didn't they? When they? Whatever happened to that rally is something else, but they were allowed to. And they have had other rallies. The whole point is, even now, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, you can't just walk willy-nilly in the CBD. You can't. There are places in the CBD that I don't go to, because they are kind of no-go zones. We can't have that in this country. No.
But
it's a level of law that we cannot allow.
Let's have a discussion around the
Yes.
Constitution in terms of affording people to have a right to demonstrate in this. What does it say?
The Constitution is very clear.
Yeah.
You are allowed to demonstrate or to have peaceful protests. They have to be peaceful. That's number one. Number two, if you go to Section 86, I think you want Section 59, right?
Yeah.
So if you go now to Section 86, it actually sets boundaries to say you can have outside these parameters. Within these parameters, you cannot, that right is caveated by this and that and the other. So, for example, the right to protest does not hold supremacy over my right of movement. So if you're going to protest and you stop me from moving, then that's wrong. So you stop me from conducting lawful business, that's wrong. You can have your peaceful protest, which is why in any country, even in America, right now, you want to protest in New York, they will tell you, no, you can't go through Manhattan, Central Manhattan or 50th Street. Mm-hmm. Go through there via Central Park, and that's your zone. Mm-hmm. But there you can't go because you'll be disruptive. And that's exactly what the government is saying. Okay, you want to demonstrate? Fine. You can move from there to there, but you can't go there. You want to go and present a petition to Parliament? Fine. March this way and go and present a petition.
Absolutely, I agree with you that whatever happens, the protests have to be absolutely peaceful.
Correct.
And I want to give you an example of what happened on the 16th of August. And I saw the opposition fans, supporters, they were seated at the junction of Jason Moore and 2nd Street. They were seated, they were not violent. It was the police who started beating them when they were singing there. It was peaceful indeed, in my view, my side.
Listen to yourself. Where were they sitting? At the junction of two roads, at an intersection of two roads, right? Isn't that interfering with traffic? Isn't that interfering with the free flow of movement? They had agreed with the police that they would go and hold their function at the showgrounds. And then on the night before, they cancelled, right? They cancelled that function, but they still went ahead and had the function. After cancelling, after writing to the police that we have cancelled this event, and when the police came and demonstrated with them, what were they saying? Can you take it inside? Because this is now a public gathering. It can build up. Because the police have got the right for preemptive diffusion of a potential crisis. So they were trying to diffuse a potential crisis by saying, no, guys, can you go in and hold your function in? And when that didn't happen, something else happened. You were there. Wasn't the policeman attacked?
Well, I brought this subject so that...
So a policeman was attacked. That was the ignition that caused all what happened later. A policeman was attacked.
On that particular day, unfortunately, I didn't witness the assault on the police. It
Yeah.
could have happened. I can't deny that.
I'm telling you it happened.
In my side, I didn't see it. But
Of course, like all of us, we don't have eyes at the back, do you?
Of course. I brought this subject because one of the queries by especially the international community is that there is no respect in terms of human rights, and that's why Zimbabwe is not getting investments. You heard the statements from the European Union, you have the statements from the US ambassador. Of course, these are the institutions that have been supporting Zimbabwe for a very long time, and their contributions you cannot dispute.
You cannot even match investment with what's happening here. It's nonsensical. Because if that were true, there would be no investment in some countries in the Middle East, where women were not allowed to drive until very recently, where people are not allowed, where there is no social media, where actually certain websites you cannot get to, where people are flogged for certain events. Where, you know, but there is a lot of investment in those countries. So there is no connection between investment and what they're talking about. Would you think, before going to a country, you actually think, okay, so how do they treat their prisons? No.
But the Mushlati Commission, which was appointed by President Emmerson Mnangagwa, actually highlighted that the security forces used excessive force.
Yeah, but it says...
All it boils down to the issue of respect of human rights.
No. It doesn't boil down to that, because excessive force is used throughout. It shouldn't be used, but which country does not use excessive force? If you go to America, you'll find a lot of convictions. Over 1,000 blacks are shot every year without fail. Aren't those human rights? The rights of blacks? If you and I agree that black people are human, number one, and they have rights, so when their right to life is taken on the street, isn't that human right? Well, when you go to France, when you go to Britain, all these things of major incarceration of black people, that's happening, and those human rights. The point is, you cannot make the link. There is no big deal about human rights in Zimbabwe. No, we do have excessive force here and there. We do have people that break the law, whether those people are within formal security structures or not. People break the law. Do you get it?
Let's get into the subject of corruption. Of course, I understand we are now midway towards the ending of our program. Mm-hmm. The issue of corruption.
Sure.
How does it feel, you, in a personal basis, in a personal capacity, how does it feel to serve a government that is accused of corruption on a daily basis? How does it feel?
It's not just a government which is accused of corruption. It's the whole country which is corrupt.
Yeah, but let's look at the government now.
Yeah.
We venture into other areas that have got corruption.
Like which corruption?
Sorry?
Like which corruption? The government. There are people within the government that are accused of corruption. Not that the government is corrupt. That's why I'm saying, if you go and frame your narrative calling the government corrupt, I'm saying like which corruption the government is accused of.
I can give you illustrations. You have the Auditor General's report actually that highlighted that there were more than 600,000 liters of fuel that disappeared. It has not been accounted for. It's in the Auditor General's report. You have the former tourism minister, Priska Mfumira, is right now is being brought before the courts.
So
because of
exactly, that's the point, Costa. That's the point, Costa. There are individuals within the government who are corrupt, right? And that's why the ZAC is being empowered and being capacitated to deal with those. It's not a government which is corrupt. How do I feel if I were to serve with another PS who is corrupt? I think you would be tending me, and I don't like that person for that. If I had a director who was corrupt, I wouldn't like them. But to say the government is corrupt, that's wrong. You see, that's the wrong choice of words. What you are dealing with is corrupt individuals, because if you go to any country, you will find people who are corrupt. Yes, our country has got more corrupt people, but that is throughout the system. When you go out there, you meet a corrupt policeman, you meet a corrupt journalist. How do you feel as a journalist to serve a profession which is accused of corruption? People are accused of brown envelopes. That's the question you're asking me. How do you feel? And my answer, which is your answer, is no, I'm not corrupt. I know journalists which are corrupt, but it's not the whole profession which is corrupt. Exactly.
But we have some elements. Okay, let me just give you another example. Yeah. You have the finance minister, I think last month, he agreed that common agriculture, one of the highly hyped farming government in program, that it was opaque. And in your understanding, what does that mean? When the finance minister says the farming program was opaque?
It doesn't mean it was corrupt. That's different. It only means we should have been more transparent. It's just like right now we are giving the post-cabinet briefing. Why? Because we felt the government was kind of opaque. The government should be more transparent. We should have a more open government.
More open, of course.
That's all. But it doesn't mean that if I put on my shutters here, then I'm being corrupt. It basically means that I'm not being open.
When something is opaque, say, it means it's unclear.
No, it means it's not transparent. It's the exact, opaque is the exact opposite of transparent.
If we had to actually consult what the public accounts, the parliamentary public accounts led by Tendai Biti, it actually says more than 4 billion was used in the command agriculture, and there are no vouchers and documents
and that was proved to be not true. We know that there are some parliamentarians who actually come up with figures from thin air. Not even 1.2 billion was used in command agriculture in 4 years. Those are the figures. If you want those figures, I can give you. So it doesn't mean that if somebody says something, that is true, because it's true. Because the permanent secretary of finance came out with the figures where they were used and which were used, which year.
Now we have seen a shift from command agriculture to smart agriculture.
It's still command agriculture in some form.
Are you happy with it yourself?
Yes, I am very happy with it.
Even in terms of food shortages that we are experiencing?
It's the same thing now. It's just going on meritorious grounds, where people used to go to a certain person or to a certain company to be funded. People are now going to banks who are specialists in credit rating and credit management. So they will do their credit assessment. There's a specialist, and if you deserve, they will give you the inputs and the support that you need, which is where we were supposed to go, and we were going. Why did we have command agriculture? Because the financial institutions, a good number of them actually, agricultural-oriented or farming-oriented financial institutions were under sanctions. Agribank, what you name them, they were under sanctions. That's number one. Number two, there were the issues around the 99-year lease, whether it was bankable or not. So you're a farmer who has got land. You want input because every farmer has to get financial support. So what do? The government supported agriculture by ensuring that people had the inputs they needed, but they would repay those loans. Those were loans, pretty much. That is what it was. Now that loan system has moved from government to financial institutions, with the government acting as a guarantor.
So in terms of repaying those loans, where are we right now?
Well, a good number of people have repaid, some have not, and those are being pursued for them. I can't tell you the figures off the top of my head because I didn't know you would want them, but people have to.
We have also heard some stories that are of not interest, of course, whereby the distribution of these inputs aligned to command agriculture were done on political lines. Have you ever heard of that?
No, that's not true. I've heard rumors or claims that those inputs that were being given for the presidential input scheme, some felt people on the ground were abusing their authority, their positions, using them for political reasons. Obviously, that's wrong, and those are criminal acts. But not command agriculture, because command agriculture, you apply, you fill a form, you go and collect. That's all. And
it's being done fairly?
Fairly. You give me one person who went to, who deserved command agriculture inputs and they were not given. One. Okay, I don't think you'll give me one.
The issues of policy inconsistencies.
Alleged policy inconsistencies, because I don't know any. I don't know of any. So you might as well tell me which policy inconsistencies, and then I can tell you whether there's an inconsistency or not.
Okay, let's talk about the issue of the multi-currency system. Why has the government banned it?
Obviously, we are going to the monocurrency system, where we have your own currency like any other country. In South Africa, they don't have a multi-currency. In Zambia, they don't have a multi-currency. In Britain, they don't have a multi-currency. Even in Europe, where you've got 28 at this point countries, they don't even have a multi-currency system. You use local currency. That's all. That's what they use. So why would you ask a question why Zimbabwe is using its own currency? That's where we are going. We are being normal. We are going into normalcy.
Well, lastly, this is the last segment. We want to talk about the issues of investment.
Yes.
You agree with me that in the run-up to the 2018 election, July 2018 election, there was a huge hype in terms of Zimbabwe gaining a lot of investments from around the world. Where are we today in terms of those investments? Because things seem to be getting worse on a daily basis.
Not in terms of investment. We still got a lot of interest, and we still got a lot of activity in the mining sector. We got some kind of activity in the agricultural sector, not too much elsewhere. But we would hope, because being an agro-based economy, we would expect a lot of vertical integration along those primary sectors, which is the resource-based sectors, including tourism. Obviously, at the moment, our tourism is affected by the flow in the Caribbean, the flow in the Zambezi. It's also affected by the death of our animals. It's also affected by the current drought. pretty much. But we expect a lot of vertical integration. When we, being an agro-based economy, for example, when you have a good dairy system, a dairy farming system, then it means dairy body is going to do very well, and all other ice cream, whatever, producers are going to do very well. That's vertical integration. That's the vertical integration I'm talking about. Then when you have, like even beans, Cashew Valley is going to do very well, Canes is going to do very well, and so on. Kokom will do very well. This is what I'm talking about, the trickle-down effect of a good agricultural season. So yes, we were affected because we were affected by drought. It was a major issue when it comes to that investment. In the mining sector, as I said, you got Karos, things are happening there.
The public want to understand something in terms of this investment. The issues of perception what Zimbabwe is being viewed before the international community, and the issue of the Ballard partners that the government at some point paid or hired the US PR firm to lobby for its image. How true is that?
Every government invests in its image. One of the first investment a government does in its image is having embassies throughout the world. Because the first job of an ambassador is to paint the correct image of their government. Mm-hmm. So beyond that, you may decide that there's a bit of a gap, right? Mm-hmm. So what do? You plug that gap, either through other advertisements, like or sponsoring a football team or whatever, or actually getting a PR company to support the image building. It doesn't help, obviously, in situations where you are fighting a situation where your own citizens are trying by all means to throw mud into the image of a country.
So you are confirming the government hired the Ballard partners, right?
Yeah, it's a fact.
And how much did the
I don't have the figure at this present moment.
But I mean, Rwandan President Paul Kagame said the first thing that whoever is responsible, whether a president or a leader, should firstly deal and win the public trust in the first instance before looking outside.
Do you actually know that at some point Rwanda had 5 PR companies, international PR companies, the so-called lobbying companies? Do you even know that at this point they've got about 3, I think?
So how do you rate the effectiveness from that day up to now? How is that firm achieved now? Well, the perception seems to be the same.
No, the perception is different because you see, when you're doing the PR thing, it's not so much about painting gloss images. It's about dealing with the power brokers within certain institutions and governments. So they've made progress, but I don't believe this conversation is about an assessment of how our lobbies have done. No, that will be defined by outcome. It's not something that operates out there and you say, okay, you're advertising. No, now let's see whether your advert has generated customers. No. The difference is, what's the goal? What are the deliverables? And our PR companies are achieving our deliverables.
If some say you paid Ballard partners 500 million.
I said, no, definitely not. But I don't know. It's not that. I don't have the figure on the top of my head, but it's definitely nowhere near that. Okay. And it's normal for countries to fight to PR.
What do Zimbabweans play in terms of changing the perception that this country has?
Costa,
in your view, what role the people in general?
Costa, we've got a very beautiful country. We need to put our best foot forward by projecting our country in the right way. If you have problems with your government, that's fine. It's allowed. That's democracy. But you can't appear like you've got a problem with your country. No. If you want to bash the government, by all means, go ahead. It's your democratic right. But please make a distinction between government and country. Because if you are going to celebrate that water is low, water is low in Caribou, in the Victoria Falls. Government, country, are you being able to make the distinction?
That's not worth celebrating.
Exactly. And if you are going to encourage people not to come into the country as tourists, people, you have brothers, sisters, and so forth who are employed in the hotel industry and other secondary industries which depend on tourists. And yet you are trying to ensure that they don't come. Government, country, the distinction there, if we can make that distinction, if we can get there, I think we would have done very well. then you are not, we're not saying every citizen should be a PR officer for the government. No, but we're saying every citizen is a PR officer for the country. That's very important.
Yeah. I understand the issues of patriotism. Some say it's not about supporting the government to precise, but it's about being fair with your country.
Exactly. That's about it's about the country. It's about lining behind the flag. Everybody has to. I've done my bit on traveling. I really have. I've been around. We actually got a great country. Yes, we have got our challenges, but we're not the worst. But out there, when it comes to fighting for our country, holding our heads high, chinning up as a nation, I don't think we're in the Premier League.
Lastly, we have the international community saying one of the things that this government has to do in order to attract investments to economic and political reforms.
Yes, and if you look, if you read throughout the TSP,
which appear to be moving very slow.
Yeah, we're not moving at the pace we would have loved to move at, but definitely we are reforming, and we need to reform. There is no question about it. President Mnangagwa wants to reform. He wants to be known as a reformer. His whole legacy is going to depend on how much we reform. So yeah, we want to reform as fast as possible, but not at a pace which makes everyone's head spin, but a pace which is achievable and reasonable, and we should be reaching some level of good prosperity of an upper middle income status by 2030. That's no mean achievement, because to 2030 we're getting into 2020. It's 10 years. So we have to be productive. We have to be developmental at a faster pace, so that we can do that by 2030. Of course, when people are being told about that this will come in 2030 or by 2030 we should be there, people are thinking of now. They want their son in school, their daughter in school now. They want food on their table now. So when you tell them now, we're putting things in place that, you know, the harvest is coming in 4 or 5 months' time, to them, it's too late.
Something a bit different now. How safe are journalists under this administration?
We are proud that there is no journalist that has been killed during this administration. Never. There are journalists that die every day, including in countries like Ireland. They die every day or regularly. But in Zimbabwe, no journalist has been killed, ever. Well, at least in the youth dispensation. So we want to ensure that their safety is always in place. We will discuss a lot of ways in which we ensure that they don't put themselves, they will do their job, but without putting themselves on the front line.
But these are the people who are being assaulted on a daily basis. Whenever there is something in town and they are covering.
Okay, let's start with, are you saying on daily basis as a figure of speech or
no,
in reality?
Of course.
So because I mean it,
something that is happening regularly.
I may need to ask you whether somebody was assaulted yesterday, the day before, the last week. No, it's of course. So yeah. That sounds like a gross exaggeration, but no, journalists are not being assaulted on a daily basis. I don't know why people fake it, because I remember another paper said a certain journalist from Reuters had been assaulted and incarcerated or hospitalized or whatever, which journalist said it wasn't true. So let's not be hyperbolic. There may be incidents where the journalist goes on the front line when police are having scuffles with some protesters, and then the journalist gets in damaged or collaterally assaulted. If that happens, those incidents are unfortunate. They shouldn't happen. We'll work closely with the police and the media to ensure that the visibility of our media practitioners is very clear, that these media, and they should not be at the end of a police operation, but they should be able to repeat behind the lines and report without impediments.
Thank you so much. It was nice talking to you, sir.
Thank you, Kos.
Thank you all viewers for following. We were talking with Permanent Secretary, Information Permanent Secretary, Mr. Nick Mangwana, discussing about the new dispensation, the challenges it is facing before the international community, the challenges we are facing as a country, the issues of corruption, and of course, lastly, the safety of journalists. And obviously, this last part will deserve more time to exhaust on it, perhaps having a meeting with other media stakeholders. Of course, we have to continue engaging each other. Thank you for following me once again. My name is Costa Nkomo, and thank you for following New Zimbabwe. On Twitter, we are found at newzimbabwe.com, and follow us on Facebook, newzimbabwe.com.